Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, I am continuing on with my series, My World of Astrology. Although this particular lesson is not just about astrology, what it is, it's about omens called Nimitta. And if you listen to the omens, you are in divine connection with the spirit of the divine. So this is a very, very difficult story for me to tell because it involved the loss of my very best friend, her death. But let me tell you how this all led up. This happened in about 1998. And let me give you a brief history of my friend Lynn. So when I was going to college, I became fast friends with Lynn. As a matter of fact, Lynn, the first thing we met, we lived in the same apartment complex in Austin. She actually lived kind of below me, and I lived at the top. There was actually somebody in between us, but at this, it was called Windridge Apartments, and it had this fabulous pool, and it was out by Bee Cave Road, Bee Cave, and now it's where the Mopac is, but it was kind of close to Zilker Park. Those of you, Austin in those days were phenomenal. It's like the old days of the hippies, but seems like the sky was bluer and everything was just so magical. And I was studying astrology, and Lynn, one of the first things she asked me is, "What sign are you?" And actually, back in those days, that was what people actually asked each other, believe it or not. I mean, people all the time asked you, "What sign are you?" And actually, it got to be a big pickup slogan for people in bars, like, "What sign are you?" That's what guys would ask girls. Of course, you know, that would have been impressive if they asked me. But anyway, going back to Lynn, we became best friends. And she's the kind of friend that knew everything about me, everything, you know, just these friends that you could tell everything. We were so close. We did everything together. And so then once I graduated from college and I went home to Dallas and became a flight attendant, I would fly back to Austin regularly all the time, and we always got together. So it was that I was flying for Southwest, and there was another friend who was a flight attendant, and gosh, I can't remember her name, but it's probably best that I don't for this video, because she actually committed suicide. And back then, we were such a small company. Everyone knew each other. All the flight attendants knew each other. And yes, and so I'll never forget, I flew with her on an overnight, and we were in San Francisco or Oakland. I loved the hotel there. It overlooked the bay, and you know, we had this overnight together. Gosh, I wish I could remember her first name. It bothers me. But anyway, we were at the hotel, and I usually got out people's charts and looked at it. And actually, I had done a reading for her before, so I brought her chart. And we sat in the room, you know, having a libation, and we were talking, and I looked at her chart, and I said, "Oh my God, you're going to have a baby. This year, you're going to have a child." And she looked at me as usual and said, "That's impossible. I don't want children. That's not going to happen." So I said, "Okay, I know that Jupiter was aspecting a planet in her 5th house for sure. I knew the 5th house is the house of children, and Jupiter is the planet of children." And it was really obvious and it was definite that she was going to have a baby that year. So I told her, and she wasn't happy with that prediction, but she laughed, and she had the cutest, funniest, contagious laugh. So we laughed, but I knew it was true. So anyway, make a long story short, she got pregnant soon after and had a baby. But it didn't fare well for her at all, because she had severe postpartum, to the point that she actually killed herself. And the way that she killed herself, I won't even tell you, but it, of course, was with a gun. And it was horrible. So, and that was even when the baby was small, and in the crib she did that. And the baby was alone in the crib, all scratched up, I heard, for hours after she did this. So anyway, I really liked her. I thought she was fun and cute. And when her obituary came out, I cut it out and put it in my bathroom, because it was a cute picture of her and I wanted to be reminded of her. And it was in the bathroom where I always get dressed and get ready, so I would always see it, and it'd make me happy to see her face. But the whole airlines all went to the funeral. It was so sad. So sad. Anyway, so I've got that picture of her there in the bathroom where I always put on my makeup and get dressed. And one day, there's a picture of Lynn and I sitting right next to it. And I thought, how did that picture of Lynn get in my bathroom? I know I didn't go dig it out of my pictures. Back then, we didn't have that many pictures because you had to have cameras, and we didn't have our phones. So I had this one really special picture of Lynn and I together. And I was looking over at the other picture of the obituary, and that picture was sitting right next to it. And I did not put it there. Who in the world would have? My kids at the time, they were small. They're not going to put that picture there, or my husband. So weird that picture was there. So then I'm thinking, why is that there? Is something going to happen to her? And I thought, no, I would have heard something. But I had an overnight with the airlines in Austin a few weeks before, and I called Lynn, and she always came and got me. We went out and had so much fun together, but she refused to come get me. And I do remember, like about 6 weeks before, or maybe a few months or 3 months before, she told me her back hurt. And so she was going to chiropractors and doing all this natural stuff. And, you know, our big thing was we always drank carrot juice whenever we didn't feel good, or celery juice, all the juicing we thought would cure everything. So, but then I called her, and she said she didn't feel good. She wasn't going to come meet me. And I never had her not come meet me. So I thought, that's really weird. But then I started thinking she was mad at me, because it just wasn't like her. And I was going, what did I do that made her mad? Couldn't figure it out. Well, coming back and thinking about that photo being next to the obituary picture, why didn't I call her? And something said, call Lynn. And I didn't. I thought she was mad at me. I thought, I'll wait for her to come around and tell me. Well, needless to say, about 3 days later, her sister called me and told me she passed away. I was devastated. I had no idea she was sick and dying. She didn't tell me. She didn't want to tell me. She didn't want to worry me, is what her sister said. I was devastated. I cannot even tell you. It was like a part of me died. It really was. And I didn't listen to the omen. So clear. The Spirit put that there. And I could have talked to her. Wish I could have talked to her one more time before she died. And the thing that really broke my heart is I didn't know she was sick. I would have done so much to help her if I could have, but I didn't, and I didn't call. The universe was trying to tell me to call her. And I felt so guilty and bad that I didn't. So they arranged for a funeral. And my husband and I, of course, were flying down to Austin to go to the funeral. The night before the funeral, I had the most vivid dream. And I dreamt I was in a car and I was looking back, and we were driving in Austin, and I was looking back, and there was this sign that said Dripping Springs. And something said, look forward, don't look back. But it clearly said Dripping Springs. Dripping Springs is a city outside of Austin, a really cute town. All that hill country's, was so fun in the day. I'm sure it still is. But in the day, before things were built up, it was really fun and cool. So I remember having that dream about Dripping Springs. And so I woke up the next day and I told my husband, I had this really vivid dream about Dripping Springs, a sign. We were traveling and something said, don't look back. After I saw the sign so clear, Dripping Springs. So we go to the funeral, and it was an open casket. Oh my God, that killed me. My husband burst out crying before I did. And she had cancer, and it was pancreatic cancer, and she was all yellow, probably because her sister said she tried the carrot juice thing, and that doesn't work well when the liver and the pancreas aren't working, and it made her even more orange. So to make a long story short, the funeral procession, we all got in the cars to where she was going to be buried. And you know how the police kind of in their motorcycle parade, take you out. But then we were driving for so long that the police kind of went to the side and the cars carried on. And we got to this point where we turned and this big sign said Dripping Springs. I didn't know. And luckily I told my husband about the dream that morning before we left. And I said, look, Dripping Springs, that's where she was buried, in Dripping Springs. So that was pretty amazing. But the story gets better because Lynn started communicating with me through my mind. I would ask her what the other side was like. And she gave me all this detail. Let me tell you a few of the things that she told me. And we used to run together. We were runners, and we always would run Town Lake in Austin. Every day we would run 3 to 5 miles, Town Lake. So I continued to run when I got back to Dallas. I still love to run. And back in the 90s, I had this headset, this big thing, and it was the radio. And you would kind of have to turn it to change the channel to find a song you liked on the radio. It wasn't like you have all these devices today that you can listen to whatever song when you want at any time, like we have today. So I had that big old thing, which was the radio, because I had to listen to music when I'm running. So during that time was when I would talk to Lynn, and in my head, she would answer me. And I said, what is the other side like? She says, first of all, you can't imagine. It's beyond your comprehension being in the body and, having the physical matter of a brain. It's beyond words or comprehension. She said, it's like, imagine you're under the water and I'm above in the air, and we're trying to communicate. That's why it's so hard, because you're in this really dense place underwater and you can't hear me, and I'm in this light and airy place above the water. She said, when you die, what happens is You leave the body and you become one with everything. There are no barriers. There's no separation. All of a sudden, you're everywhere and everything in everything. And she says, and you can't imagine what it's like. She says, but it's so much more natural than the state you're in a body, because in a body you feel separate. You're not connected to everything all at once, everywhere. She says, but trust me, you can't really imagine, but it is so great. It is so beautiful, and you are one with everything. And I thought, yeah, I can't. She says, but when you're in the body, you're fearful because you're not connected to everyone and everything. Here, it's out here, it's like unity. We're all one with everything. And it's joyful. And that's the way it is supposed to be. It is so much more natural. So I thought, that is interesting. So I would continually communicate with her. And another thing is, I was like, well, why did you get this cancer? And she said, it's radio. It's the radiation. And then I remembered she moved to this apartment, or it's more like a condo. It's right on top of the Austin power plant. When you looked out her window, there was these huge wires that were this big, you know, huge wires right underneath her balcony. I thought, oh my God, she lived on top of a power plant. She got cancer from that. Made sense. Made so much sense. And then I always, you know, talked about that kind of thing. Why didn't I connect to that and tell her to move? Of course, she probably wouldn't have listened to me anyway. But then, so I was in constant communication with her, asking her about the other side, and she would, through my mind, give me the answer. But here is the real clincher that I want you to know. I'm going on and on communicating with her, and I run into a neighbor, you know, while I'm jogging, that she was out jogging. And I actually told her that I communicated with my friend while I was running, and that had passed away last summer. And she would tell me things, and this girl looked at me so frightened that I was like, why did I tell her that? And then she looked at me like I really need to be in an insane asylum. And I guess it would sound like that. So then I started thinking, what if I am making this up? The way she looked at me, maybe I am crazy. Maybe I'm making all this up because I just feel so disconnected to Lynn and I miss her so much. I'm making all this up and it's all nonsense. So going back to the big headset, while I was running, when they closed the casket on her, during the time there was this song that I liked called Closing Time by Semisonic. And it reminded me of her so much. And it was like they closed the casket and I thought about that song, Always Closing Time. Whenever what was it? When there's an ending, there's always a new beginning, closing time, something to that effect. Every new beginning means every new beginning is from some other beginning's end. That's what the song says. So I'm running and I thought, I'm crazy. I'm making all this up. I said, Lynn, if this is you talking to me right now in my head, make the song Closing Time come on the radio. As soon as I said that, the song started. And this is the radio. This is not me manipulating the songs. And I said, thank you. I will never discount spirit and the other side and the truth of being in connection with the spirit world ever again. Never doubt it, because it is real. This truly, truly happened to me. Now, some of you out there could think I'm making it up, but it doesn't matter. I know it's the truth. And she communicated with me for a very long time, and in so many ways. But the message to this story is, listen to the omens and listen to the spirit world. It is real. But don't forget, the divine will always give you information. A lot of people probably don't even realize they're getting omens. They wouldn't even think about that picture being next to the obituary, that was a serious omen. Or the dream that I had that was so explicit about Dripping Springs. And it was such a mystical period of my life. And you know, it's kind of interesting. When people really close to you do die, it is such great loss, and you're so sad and you cry so much, but it is a time of deep connection to the spirit world. And we realize that we're not alone, and we realize that we are divinely connected. And it's like a period like in astrology that deals with K2. K2's lost, but it's spirituality. That's where we connect to the divine. And this world is just one different dimension. She told me that so many times, but I thought it was so meaningful trying to understand what it's like to be on the other side and why we can't connect to the other side. So that is my beautiful story about my dear, dear friend Lynn and all that she shared with me from the other side. And I don't talk with her anymore. I guess she's moved on to something else, but I hope that all of you out there will be able to connect to omens and realize the spirit world when it's communicating with you, and understand that the spirit world is very real. And we, most of all, one thing I always help people understand through these stories is we never die. There's no way she could have been communicating with me and making that song come on the radio when I asked, if she was not around. We don't die. That's a beautiful message I can give you from this story. So with that, I think I'll close. And remember, this is a series, and I'm coming out with one every Thursday. And as I go with this, one day maybe we'll put this whole string together and you guys can live my world of astrology. Thank you.